Once upon a time, McDonald's looked like McDonald's, Taco Bell looked like Taco Bell, and White Castle looked like a place everyone but college kids wanted to avoid. But at some point, those chains started ditching their own styles in favor of a minimalist design that's so samey you can barely tell one place from the other. Even trusty old standbys like Cracker Barrel have dabbled with simplified looks to disastrous results. So why did everyone suddenly swap their decor to mimic a futuristic bomb shelter? Well, today we're going to take a look at why every restaurant looks the same now. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History Food channel. After that, please leave a comment and let us know what other restaurant-related topics you would like to hear about. Okay, can you spot the difference between these two burger joints? For all intents and purposes, the fast food business started in 1921 when Edgar Waldo Billy Ingram and Walter Anderson opened the first White Castle in Wichita, Kansas. If you've seen the Weird History video about the history of White Castle, you already know they physically modeled the restaurant on the Chicago Water Tower, resulting in a restaurant that looked like a White Castle. White Castle's unique look gave the business a little personality, which in turn attracted customers. And that may be why former salesman Ray Kroc made sure his location similarly had some personality when he started to build his McDonald's empire a few decades later. McDonald's unique look was based on its immediately recognizable golden arches, which were originally part of the building design, and later moved to the restaurant's logo, typically displayed on a tall sign in front of most locations. The decor of every location, as well as the experience of ordering and eating at one, was similarly standardized. But the whole package was totally unique to McDonald's, and therefore memorable to customers. McDonald's certainly didn't invent the idea of a restaurant with personality. White Castle opened its doors considerably earlier, while Jack in the Box had been terrorizing customers with a clown as early as the late 1940s. But thanks to McDonald's overwhelming success, it became the blueprint for subsequent businesses in its industry. And that blueprint was pretty clear. To attract customers, fast food chains would need their own unique decor, vibe, and dining experience to stand out from the crowd. But equally important was an immediately recognizable building that customers can spot from a mile away. Once McDonald's had shown the way, everyone wanted to get in on the game. That's why, starting at its inception in 1962, Taco Bell built its restaurants to look like missions from the Southwest and branded each one with a sombrero and a bell. Meanwhile, Pizza Hut built its locations to look like actual huts, with an unmistakable red roof starting in 1969. And Popeye's Chicken paid King Features Syndicate $1 million a year for the privilege of covering its walls with images of Popeye the Sailor Man, even though the chain was actually named after Popeye Doyle, the character Gene Hackman played in the 1971 film The French Connection. Apparently, pictures of Gene Hackman did not inspire people to order chicken. Burger King, Dunkin' Donuts, Arby's, KFC, Wendy's, and Dairy Queen all had their own looks that anyone who grew up in the 20th century could instantly pick out of a lineup. And a lot of traditional restaurants began to take the hint as well. IHOP, for example, started building restaurants with its unmissable A-frame style roof as early as 1958. Cracker Barrel started doing its homespun country store shtick in 1969. And let's not forget fast casual restaurants like TGI Fridays, Applebee's, and Uncle Moe's Family Feedback, which tried to distinguish themselves by covering their walls with zany decorations. Cracker Barrel, the popular breakfast spot and country store, has an entire warehouse dedicated to collecting the weird hodgepodge of decorations adorning every location's wall. Hey, Weird History did a video about that. The result was a world where restaurants tried to project their own identities through fun-shaped buildings, goofy interior designs, and extras like play places for the kiddies, giving consumers a wide variety of dining experiences to choose from. Sadly, it would not last. Somewhere in the aughts, everything started changing. Right around then, it started becoming trendy to redesign restaurants with a sleek, minimalist look that seemed to be inspired by the sleek, minimalist offices favored by people in the dot-com bubble, which was still a few years away from bursting. It didn't happen all at once, and there are certainly exceptions. But if you were the kind of person who paid attention to such things, you noticed that as the new millennium progressed, the gaudy color schemes and cartoonish mascots that had so thoroughly dominated the preceding decade decades began to disappear. Instead, customers were increasingly greeted by blander environments, marked by exposed lighting, steel surfaces, and generally more professional, albeit far less personable, styles. No one is exactly sure what sparked the trend, but it's likely that there was more than one cause. The rise of pricier fast casual restaurants like Panera Bread, Chipotle, Shake Shack, and Five Guys is definitely one part of the equation, and while Five Guys definitely has more of a working-class vibe than the others, the similarities in design tend to far outweigh the differences. There's also the fact that new generations of customers come with different tastes, attitudes, and needs. Many of the gimmicks that made fast food places so memorable, for example, were designed to catch the eye of people driving by. But car culture has diminished some over the years, as more people use public transportation and ride-sharing services, and the food service industry has widely embraced delivery and mobile ordering as a result. Restaurants are less concerned with getting customers to eat in their dining rooms, so those old-fashioned gimmicks simply don't benefit these places like they once did. There's also a recent trend of clean, simple imagery and graphic design, which has resulted in both newer brands with minimalist logos like Crumble, whose branding is just a plain pink background with the company name in a welcoming font, and existing brands stripping down their logos in an attempt to be more modern and appealing. In the case of Cracker Barrel, unfortunately, that meant eliminating the titular Cracker Barrel from the sign, and the old-timer leaning next to it in a rocking chair. That's like firing Wendy or the Colonel. Customers were too fond of the original logo and its folksy illustration, and after an immediate outcry, Cracker Barrel reverted to its old look. But many other places have updated their designs and never looked back. The food industry has its own evolving concerns as well. Ever since the 1980s, consumers have become increasingly health-conscious, and more than a few commentators have suggested these bland corporate redesigns are specifically intended to try and make customers forget they're eating the same old greasy fast food. But the aughts also saw a generally increased focus on service and efficiency for the restaurant biz. And while they may not be obvious, the new model has some advantages in those departments. For example, the boxy spaces that have come to define fast food and fast casual dining locations are cheaper to build, cheaper to heat, and cheaper to keep cool. They fit more customers into less space, thus maximizing profits. And they're easier to clean, so there's less staff to hire. In other words, there are definitely upsides for the company. That being said, the assembly line approach to building restaurants has left us with a landscape punctuated by interchangeable buildings with muted colors, giant windows, and interiors filled by touchscreens rather than employees. Every restaurant is now so similar to its competition that most people probably couldn't tell one chain from another without looking at the menu. As long as we're singing the virtues of restaurants with their own unique personalities, it's worth mentioning that in rare circumstances, McDonald's and other chains are willing to give their franchise owners a lot more leeway in personalizing their locations. Take, for example, the Area 51 McDonald's located in Roswell, New Mexico, the mecca of all things UFO-related. It's the only McDonald's on this planet that's shaped like an alien spaceship. The restaurant, which features statues of aliens that visitors can take pictures with, has also been known to have UFO-themed costume contests and karaoke nights, not to mention an annual UFO festival. There's also the Turquoise McDonald's located in Sedona, Arizona. Due to local regulations, Mickey D's couldn't use their normal red and yellow color scheme, so the whole place, including the typically golden arches, was instead done up in a rich turquoise color, more natural to its southwestern environment, giving it a multiverse vibe. And in New Hyde Park, New York, you'll find what most aficionados consider to be the world's most beautiful McDonald's. The entire restaurant was built inside an 18th century Georgian-style mansion, which once belonged to a prominent Long Island family, but was allowed to fall into a state of disrepair. McDonald's planned to tear it down, but had to change their plans when locals lobbied the government to declare the location a landmark. And it's not just McDonald's. For example, if you've ever had the feeling that eating a Whopper would be more fulfilling if you did it in a building that had a Frankenstein-themed roller coaster on its roof, and let's be honest, who hasn't, then might we recommend taking a trip to Niagara Falls, Ontario, and visiting the Burger King located right beneath the Franken Coaster. In all fairness, they're not officially related. The coaster is actually part of an adjoining theme park-like attraction called the House of Frankenstein, and the restaurant doesn't lean into the association at all. There are no Frankenstein-related meals or decorations, but the attraction does pay tribute to their neighbor with a statue of Frankenstein's monster taking a bite out of a burger, which is ironic because in the book the monster is vegetarian. Learning is fun. There's also a Dallas Cowboys-themed Raising Cane's in Dallas, a Hawaiian-themed Chick-fil-A in Fayetteville, Georgia, and a big, glitzy, neon-wrapped Taco Bell on the Las Vegas Strip that serves alcoholic beverages and has a DJ and a dance floor. And if nothing else, they're all pretty memorable. And sure, we realize that not every fast food restaurant can have a Frankenstein-themed roller coaster on its roof, but personality counts, and it's in pretty short supply if you're in the market for burgers and fries. Despite the trend towards sterile minimalism over the past few years, many fast food restaurants have simultaneously taken to playing the nostalgia card. Burger King and KFC, for example, have occasionally reverted to using their classic logos. So has Pizza Hut, which produced a whole series of 80s nostalgia-fueled commercials starring comedian Craig Robinson. And several chains have even revived the classic packaging for their food and the classic decor for their interiors. The idea is to win over millennials and Gen Xers by using branding that evokes the sense of comfort they felt when they visited these places in their youth, long before the dangers of such cuisine was drilled into their heads by a zillion articles and experts. It also allows restaurant chains to roll back, or at least minimize, some of the futuristic branding decisions they implemented at the turn of the millennium, without inviting too much backlash. It happens regularly enough that it's possible the future of the restaurant business may eventually look more like its past than its present. Fingers crossed for the return of play places. That being said, we wouldn't expect things to change anytime soon. Between several recessions, a continuing trend toward healthier eating, and the COVID-19 pandemic, both the fast food and fast casual dining sectors have taken quite a hit over the last 2 decades. It's not entirely clear that consumers care all that much about a restaurant's unique identity anymore. And the rise of technology like touchscreens, AI-powered drive-thrus, and delivery robots are making physical dining rooms less and less important to a burger chain's bottom line. But few people from the 1970s would have foreseen a world where McDonald's traded in its red and yellow color scheme for a monotonous brown, and Kentucky Fried Chicken would shorten its name to an acronym, and all but ditch the once inescapable image of their founding colonel. And the recent nostalgia plays are encouraging. What we really need to worry about is when we start feeling nostalgic for the metal and wood look. So what do you think? Do you like the new style, or do you wish the decor would roll back to the 90s already? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other weird history food videos.